Alright, so I sort of alluded to this video a little bit in that tips for keeping your Steam Deck healthy video that I did from last week, but today all we're going to do is take a look at my personal favorite Steam Deck accessories right now, having had the chance to battle test them over a much longer period of time. Because normally if I get a new accessory for the Steam Deck, whether that's a company that sent me something or if I actually went out and purchased something, usually what ends up happening is I battle test it for just, a few days and then sort of give my insights on it, review or whatever. But I don't have the opportunity to really talk about how those items hold up over a really long period of time, like months or in some cases years. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do today, is just kind of give some updated insights on the 5 accessories that I personally get the most use out of when it comes to the Steam Deck. And for each one that I talk about here today, I'll also throw up a card in the upper left hand corner so you can go check out the full review or the first appearance of that item in a prior video. And with all of that out of the way, let's just go ahead and jump into the first item on my list, and that would be the Viture Pro XR Glasses. So I absolutely love these things. Essentially what they are a pair of glasses that you put on that have 2 tiny OLED displays built into each lens, and this allows you to put these on and then through a single USB-C connection to your Steam Deck, have what is the equivalent of about a 100-inch screen that is just floating in front of you. And while I had a great time testing it directly with the Steam Deck, when I first got these glasses, I also spent some time hooking it up to like my iPad Pro and also to a MacBook to kind of see what the experience would be like using them as a secondary display as well. And I guess in a nutshell, the best way I can describe the experience of actually using these things is that it is super simple and incredibly useful, especially if you're somebody who does often play in portable mode on your Steam Deck, but you don't necessarily want to look down at the screen, or maybe like me, you have some neck issues that make it way more comfortable to stare straight ahead, but you don't always necessarily want to be in docked mode either. So these sort of represent a great middle ground between ergonomics and also just having a rad experience period where you just have this gigantic display floating right in front of your face. Now as far as additional insights for this accessory go, most of these were gleaned from the fact that I did use them on the go, both on a recent road trip with my folks, and then also on a flight out to Austin to hang out with my buddy Ben. On the road trip, one of the things that I was most concerned about was how these would hold up in terms of giving people motion sickness. One of the things that is a little bit weird and takes some time to get used to when it comes to the glasses is that those displays perfectly follow your head every time it moves, which can be a little bit jarring, especially if you're coming from something like, using a MetaQuest headset or some other VR headset where you're used to kind of moving your head and naturally having your vision just look at a different portion of the screen. But because these are more like static screens that float in front of you like a TV rather than like a 360-degree view of a VR environment, it can be a little jarring. However, one of the things that I noticed in, just being a passenger on that road trip for a few hours is that I did not get motion sick at all. And that's something that I thought would be a real concern if you wanted to use these things while you were in motion, just doing some traveling, whether that's, on a road trip like I was, or riding the train, or anything like that, but I'm happy to report that that was not a concern. Now when it comes to air travel, one of the things that I wanted to test out was, did I really have to use these silly lens covers that block out all the light to make sure that I would have a good experience? The ones that they included look absolutely hilarious and I love them, but it might also freak people out who aren't used to seeing somebody wear glasses like that in an environment where you're around other people. But in removing them, I was a little bit worried that ambient light or a light leak would make it really hard to see the display, and I'm happy to report that was not the case. Like I mentioned in the original review video, there is a button that you hit that I think engages some sort of oleophobic sort of dim feature that, kind of blocks out the light anyways in the glasses, even without the cover on it. And in using it this way, I found it did a great job at still allowing me a clear view of the action while I played a bunch of Castlevania on my flight out to Texas. And finally, while I have found that I could reliably use these for 1 to 2 hours at a time without any issues or any significant battery drain on the Steam Deck, I did notice that in a long enough timeline, maybe around the 2 or 3 hour mark, at least once or twice I just had the video signal stop for reasons unknown to me. Now thankfully it was a pretty easy fix. All I did was unplug them from the USB-C port on the Steam Deck and then plug it back in and everything picked back up normally, but I'm not really sure what accounted for this. It could have been something weird in the Steam Deck's video output, and something related to a recent software update. Maybe it was something about heat going to the glasses in terms of how it was powered. I don't know for sure, but it is definitely something that I wanted to mention because as much as I love these glasses, I can't in confidence say that they are 100% bulletproof 24/7 365. But again, I wouldn't call these a deal breaker necessarily because the fix was just to unplug it and plug it back in again, which I am very familiar with as an IT person. And speaking of displays, let's go ahead and move on to the next accessory, which was one that I checked out at the beginning of this year, and that would be the Arzopa G1 portable monitor. Now this is a portable USB-C powered monitor that you can just plug into the Steam Deck with a single connection most of the time, and play games on a much larger display. Practically speaking, this is great if you're at like a coffee shop or something like that and you don't want to look down at the display, but rather would just have something more like a laptop display in front of you, so you can keep a really clear view of the action and just on a really big screen to boot. And the reason I say most of the time is because, while generally speaking, a game that doesn't, have a really taxing presentation will run just fine with a single USB-C connection to the monitor, if you have a game that's particularly taxing on the GPU, you may have to hook up an additional power source to that monitor through one of its USB-C ports to make sure that the display stays on. But still, I have to admit, on the few occasions that I did take it out to a coffee shop or something and set it up with the Steam Deck with a single connection for lighter weight games, it was really cool having a 16.1-inch display right in front of me through a single USB-C connection no less, and with a great kickstand to boot. But here's the thing, after using the Viture glasses so much over the past several months, I haven't had as much of an occasion or need to really bust out this display specifically for use with the Steam Deck. However, what I have done over the past several months is keep it connected to a secondary computer in my home, where I use it as a vertically oriented secondary display, and that thing has been running for months on end at this point with no issues to speak of. And when I haven't just been using it as a secondary display to that computer, I've also packed it up with me with my Xbox Series S whenever I went over to my friend's house to play Call of Duty, because it gave me a quick, easy monitor to set up without having to worry about carrying like a bulky TV along with me. Now don't get me wrong, it's not the best display in the world or anything, but it is still a perfectly competent 1080p 144Hz 16.1-inch display, and ultimately if you just need a display in a pinch, or if you just like to have a secondary backup monitor around, you could do a lot worse than this, and the fact that you can regularly find it on sale from anywhere from like 80 to 140 bucks depending on what coupons are available on Amazon and if they're doing any particular sale for something like Black Friday, it's still a really good value. Especially considering the flexibility and utility it provides as either a secondary monitor to an existing computer, the ability to quickly pair with a gaming console like an Xbox or a PlayStation 5, and then obviously using it for the Steam Deck if you just want to find some middle ground between docked mode and playing portably. And next up, let's look at an accessory that was one of the first I actually got for the ROG Ally, but then quickly ended up using it almost exclusively with the Steam Deck, and that would be my Anker 737 power bank. And I mean, there's really not a lot that I can say about this, right? It's a big old beefy boy of a battery, it's about 24,000 milliamps, and it can recharge the Steam Deck about 2.5 times on a full charge in my experience. Beyond just the raw utility of being a really great backup battery, it's also got a really nice OLED display as well that gives you a perfect readout of how much battery life is remaining, and what the power draw looks like whenever you're charging it back up, or if you're feeding power to a device like a phone, tablet, or ostensibly the Steam Deck. And not to mention, when it comes to that power draw, it can deliver up to 140 watts, which means it is more than capable of powering a laptop. Although most of the time, it's not so much that I'm grabbing this backup battery and recharging the Steam Deck when the battery gets low. Usually what I'll do is I'll just plop down on my couch, plug this battery into my Steam Deck, and then play a more taxing game like, say, Spider-Man or something like that, and then I basically have just extended my playtime from maybe 1 to 2 hours to potentially 2 to 4 hours on a single charge. And this is especially helpful if you're like me and like to do what I call second screen gaming, where you play something on the Steam Deck and then throw like a movie on or a show or something in the background that you've already seen a million times that is, maybe thematically aligned with whatever you're playing. A great combo that I personally like is to play Cyberpunk 2077 while I watch Blade Runner 2049. And with this battery, it allows me to do that without having to be close to an outlet to be tethered, or having to be in straight up docked mode or anything. And having now used it for about 18 months straight periodically, I can confidently say that it is still holding a charge perfectly, and I've had no issues with it to speak of. Now, to be fair, I wouldn't say that I've put it through hundreds of charging cycles, but definitely many dozens, and it performs as well as the first day that I bought it. So, again, I definitely recommend this if you're in the market for a big backup battery for your Steam Deck. Now, moving on to matters of protecting your Steam Deck, let's move on and take a look at the DBrand Killswitch case, which they sent me, I think it was last year when I first checked out this case for the deck. And if you remember, DBrand had a pretty rocky start with this accessory. Initially, everyone thought it was great because it had a magnetically attached kickstand on the back, but what they didn't realize, and I believe it was The Verge that figured it out, was that magnet was actually interfering with the fans inside that would cause the Steam Deck to overheat or potentially damage it, which is obviously not a great thing, especially when it comes to an accessory that is supposed to protect your Steam Deck. It's basically the polar opposite of what it's supposed to do. But thankfully, DBrand were really quick in responding to this, and within a couple of months, they sent everybody who ordered that original model an updated version with a mechanical kickstand, and also a cheeky message in binary on the back of it that I won't say here because it is super not safe for work. But when it comes to the case and its associated screen cover itself, it is still an amazingly secure way to protect your Steam Deck. At this point, I've traveled with my Steam Deck more than a few times, and anytime that I feel like I need to protect it, I go ahead and make sure that case is on there and go ahead and pop on the screen protector as well, just to make sure that not only the screen is protected, but also that the rigid plastic that goes over the analog sticks keeps those from getting, bounced around by anything that might also be in my backpack. And the only real update I have on this one, aside from attesting that yes, it definitely is still doing a good job at protecting my Steam Deck over a year later, is that even though I like the case and it's comfortable, whenever I'm on the go, whenever I'm at home and I want to play portably, I do find myself removing it. The Steam Deck's already a fairly heavy device compared to something like a Switch Lite, and while the additional weight tacked on by the Killswitch case isn't like egregious or anything like that, it's definitely noticeable, and generally speaking, if I'm at home, the odds that I'm going to drop it or, otherwise damage it are pretty low compared to just, running around out in the wild. So yeah, the updated version of this case with its kickstand and the hard plastic shield for the front still works amazingly well. I just find myself, removing it whenever I'm at home most of the time, despite the fact that it did include a dock adapter for the official Steam Deck dock. Which actually presents me a wonderful segue to the final item on this list and the comparatively most boring accessory, and that would be the official Steam Deck dock. Now, I bought this as soon as it came out, which I believe was a few months after the Steam Deck had launched, and there's really not a whole lot that I can say about it that you probably don't already know. It's an OEM dock for your Steam Deck. It includes an Ethernet connection, 3 USB ports, an HDMI output, and pass-through charging through USB-C. And what makes it potentially even more boring for me to talk about is the fact that there are other docks out there that have been designed for the Steam Deck that arguably have more functionality than the official one. Which, I haven't really tested any third-party docks that were specifically designed for the Steam Deck yet. That might be something that I'll look into in 2025, but yeah, for now I'm actually perfectly happy with the original OEM dock for the Steam Deck, mostly because in addition to just, providing exactly what I need and not a lot of, frills or anything like that, I also know that Valve has an amazing history in supporting its products and regularly provides firmware updates for the dock, so I'm reasonably assured that this is going to continue to serve me for a very long time. And while it might not have the same flashy offerings as some of the other third-party docks that are out there, I still really appreciate that it's the official Steam Deck dock, and in turn I really like the confidence of knowing that it's going to be really well supported by Valve. Plus, like I mentioned in that Steam Deck maintenance video from last week, I do play predominantly in dock mode like 90% of the time so I can make videos for here on the channel, and I have to say this thing has continued to be a rock-solid performer. I've had no issues with HDMI output or anything that weren't maybe rooted in OBS or something that was going on the software side, and I still love the minimalist approach and the build quality of this particular unit. And after hundreds of hours of use at this point, I am happy to report that it has not skipped a beat at all and still continues to be one of the most pivotal pieces of my Steam Deck workflows. Alright, and that's it for this one. Again, I just want to take a look back at the most commonly used accessories that I lean on all the time for the Steam Deck, and kind of talk about what their reliability has been like, or just, general new observations about them that I've noticed over months, or in some cases, years. So, what about you? Are there any particular, Steam Deck accessories that you've battle tested that you think have held up really well? So I would love to hear about them in the comments below, especially because I am planning to do more accessory stuff as we get into 2025? That's not right, 2025. But yeah, beyond that, as far as what's coming up on the channel, I will be doing a top games of 2024 for the Steam Deck here in a week or two. Also working on a channel update to kind of look back at what we've done in 2024 and what to look forward to in 2025. And then finally, also kind of a new format for me, an opinion piece where I just talk about why the Steam Deck feels like home, which I thought was a really fun thing to put together, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, for now, as always, thanks so much for your time and hanging out here with me on the channel. I really, really appreciate it. Have an amazing day, and I will see you on the next one.